Oh, no, it's okay.
Okay, I'll just leave that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. So, I'm 32 today. I want to start with that.
Your birthday?
No. As of now, let me start over. As of right now, I'm 32. Little context, because some of you may be older than me, and you can kind of put yourself in where I was at this point. 15 years ago, from a month from now, I got baptized. I was 17 years old. But 5 years before that, I woke up in the hospital. I started hearing screaming as I woke up in the hospital. My friend was next to me, and a good amount of hushness was there about what had happened. And I dozed in and out and woke up the next day. I asked them what happened, and they said, "You were in a car accident." They said, "Your head had split open." You can see this beautiful scar right here. And we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened to you or how it split or anything like that. But you were in this accident. So with some tests, we found out that for some reason, my legs weren't working. And they said, "You may never walk the same ever again. You may not even be able to stand." And when my family came, I didn't grow up Christians, and neither are they any type of Christians. I never even heard the Bible. But my family came, and they started making fun of me. They were making fun of the fact that I couldn't walk, the fact that I was crippled. They had some very interesting things to say. My grandparents came in, and the first thing my grandma says, on my mom's side, is, "This is a miracle of God that you're here." And I looked at the state I was in. I was looking at how I was feeling. I said, if this is what God does, I want nothing to do with him. And I was very angry. And I was angry because I wanted to die. I was hoping that that car accident would have taken my life. Because prior to that, I had lived a really rough life. My father would beat me regularly, thinking that I was gay. My mom would, being single, would deal with loan sharks and would say, "Hey, I can't pay you back, but here's my son. You can have him until I come back with the money." I did not want to live. And at that moment, I thought it would be an opportunity to not live, but that felt like it was taken from me. With the resilience and the anger I had towards God, I did try to walk. And after a year of pushing through all of the hurt and pain, I walked. And then I began to run. Oh, thank you, baby. That's my daughter right there. And I had a vendetta against God. I would pray to the devil. I'd practice witchcraft because that's what our family did. Our family was so not Christian. My dad's name is Judas. Let's put that in perspective. I'm not even joking. Good go to you. But I was angry towards God, and I made some friends finally going back to school. I couldn't go back to school for a while. And my friend, he's like, "Hey, you should come with me to youth group." I said, "What the heck is youth group?" And he said, "There's food and games and pretty girls." And at 14, that's all I needed to know. And so I go to this youth group, and I'm like, "Oh, this is a church." And I would say things like, "You guys worship a zombie. And you guys are effing stupid." And I'd say this to the pastor's face, to the church members' faces. And at school, I would debate with the Christian kids all the time. He's really getting a kick out of this. But eventually I was done. I was tired of being beaten by my father. I was tired of all the things I dealt with my mom. And I tried to kill myself. I had asked someone's forgiveness. And if I wouldn't have asked for forgiveness before I'd taken my life, they wouldn't have sent someone to actually come get me. Because the youth pastor came to my house with police, did a 3-day hold, and that was all thwarted. So, as I'm now, second time, feeling like my life being taken from me was taken from me, I was thinking, how could I get this done? How could I kill myself? I was just contemplating constantly. And the person who I asked for forgiveness for, we started dating. She would go to church on Sundays, and I'd want to hang out with her on Sundays, and she would say, hey, you should come with me. And I said, how about you stop going to church? That'd be a way better way of doing this. And she was saying that, no, I'm not leaving church. This is important to me. And I said, I'll tell you what. I'll go to church with you, but you have to let me prove to you that all this is bullcrap. So I started going to church, and I had just moved. And my mom is talking to the neighbor that she just met, and finds out that this guy is the worship leader of this church. And as he is talking to her, he's like, oh yeah, I know your son. He sits in the front with this young lady. And she says, you guys seem really joyful. Would you mentor my son? And so he says, I can do a Bible study with him. Sorry, I'm all parched. It's been a while since I spoke in public. But we started doing this study, and reluctantly I went. I would tell this man he's an effing idiot, that what he believes is stupid. I was in his house, I'm telling him this. And we're going through this survey of the Bible, and we start through Genesis, and all of a sudden, as we're walking through Genesis, I start having these dreams. I have this dream that this man, thinking back now, I know who it is, but I have this dream, this man, he's just clothed in white. He's so peaceful. And he keeps hiding his face from me. He walks me through this green field to this water. So peaceful. He's asking me why I want to die. And he's trying to figure out, like it seems like he's trying to figure out, thank you so much. Oh, that's 1,000 times better. Thank you. He's asking questions of why I want to die, and he's talking about how much he loves me. I don't even know who this guy is. And we're going through the Old Testament. I'm like, these are some cool stories, whatever. I'm still insulting this man. I'm still telling him he's stupid. And this guy has so much patience for me because in his home I'm so disrespectful. And in the meantime, I'm still planning my suicide. And I finally come to the conclusion, my mom goes and drops off my girlfriend. That gives me an hour. Planned everything out, got all the tools ready I needed. And we're going through Jesus' story. I'm like, this is a cool guy, whatever. And we get to the point where he's being nailed to the cross. And as he's being nailed to the cross, all I could think about is that day I was going to kill myself. And he's praying for them. He says, Father, forgive them. They do not know what they are doing. And at that moment, I'm so confused. I did not understand why he'd pray for them after they beat him, after they're killing him. There's no way out of this. My dad taught me, if a man even looks at you funny, go punch him. Not him. Father, forgive them. They do not know what they are doing. And I said, why is he saying that? They're beating him. He said, well, because he came to die so that you can live. And that moment, I just felt this rush of warmth and love. And I could not describe what I was experiencing. He died so I can live. And so I kept on asking questions, and we're going through, and he's like, hold on a second, it's 10 o'clock at this point. I have work tomorrow. You still have that Bible I gave you? Yes. Okay, go home and start reading in Luke. So I started reading. And I told myself, you know what? I'm curious about this. I'm going to give this a couple weeks, because he was going to go on vacation. And then when he come back, he said we would talk about it. I'm going to give this a couple weeks, and I'm just going to read. So I read further. Thank you. I read further, and then I had this dream. I had this dream that I was in this small room, and I was on this beautiful red and gold throne, and there was this person with a black goat's head, a man's torso, and lion legs, and he comes up beside me. I'm trying to move my body. I can't move. I'm just stuck. He comes up beside me and says, you see this throne right here? It could be yours if you come and worship me. And I'm so confused. There's blood on the walls. It feels gross. It feels dark. And he says, you think you know what love is? Come here, let me show you what love is. Now I can move. We go into this other room, and there, something absurd was happening. He says, is that what you think love is? It's with someone I cared about. And he says, if you want all the money, women, and power in the world, all I ask is that you bow down to me right now, call me God, and stop reading about Jesus. And so I'm going through this, and he says, you know what people think of you? And he goes like this, and everybody I ever cared about comes in the room, and they all start laughing at me. And he says, they think you're a joke. But if you call me God, I will make you something. And I was getting so frustrated. And he's like, why don't you just admit you're already you're already the monster I created you. And I punch him in the face. I said, I will never serve you. And I start running. And I go into this room, and it's dark, and I hit a wall, and I was like, okay, I'm never going to serve you again. I'm never going to serve you again. I'll never serve you again. And it gets quiet. And all of a sudden, I'm on the roof of this hut on top of this hill, and there's this blinding light in the sky. And that man, Timothy, who was doing this study with me, is next to me. He says, do not look up. Don't look at the light. I said, it looks so beautiful. What is it? He says, don't look, or else you will die. And I'm like, I have to. This is gorgeous. I have to see it. Just don't. I look up. My body burns and reforms in the shadow of the house. And the light calls out to me and says, come out of the darkness. I'm calling you out of the darkness. And I come out, and I get on my knees, and I say, who are you? And I remembered the voice from all those other dreams of that man walking, and he says, you know who I am. He says, I have a plan for you, and I love you. And I'm telling you right now, you need to wake up and decide who is your God. And I'm sitting there in such awe. I can't even move my body, not because I'm being controlled, but because the overwhelming presence that I'm in. He says, wake up and decide who is your God. And I wake up, and I have tears drenched down my chest. I'm late to school. And I'm like, oh, crap. And so I throw my clothes on. I miss the bus. And just so happens the bus comes. And she knows who I am. And she says, what school do you go to? And I said, I go to Mount Eden. Great, I'll drive you all the way. And she's like, my shift is over. Are you sure? Absolutely, let's go. I said, okay, all right. She lets me get on. We go to school. And I get to school, it's lunchtime. And my friends are debating with this Christian kid that we've been debating with for probably about a year now. And I'm listening this time. Before, the things he said did not make sense. And now everything he's saying is making sense. And I'm like, what the heck? And the bell rings for lunch. My friends are like, you're stupid. That's the nice way of saying it. You're stupid. You believe in a fairy tale. And I said, guys, I've been reading the Bible, and I think what he's saying is true. And the guy who I've been debating with for all this time, he says, do you believe that Jesus is who he says he is? I just think about that dream. Wake up and decide who is your God. I said, I think I do. And he runs up to me and puts his arms around me. And he says, do you know, he's a little guy. He's like, do you know what this means? I was like, what the heck? He says, this means you're my brother now. And you're a new creation. And I'm just like, I just had a dream, bro. And I don't know what to do with this. But I continue to read and I continue to research. And Jesus was a historical man. He did exist. He was real. Not just by Christian accounts, but non-Christian accounts. I said, okay, so we're good there. The accounts that were brought about him, they were all true. They were consistent, but they weren't exactly the same. And I'm like, I wanted to be a police officer at one point, and with knowing evidence, you don't want someone to have the same story. So I was like, that checks out for me. So I went to my pastor and I said, for my birthday, I want to get baptized. And I got baptized, and it was absolutely amazing. Because after that, I shared my testimony with everybody. I shared about the goodness of God and how he brought me from this place. And I wanted to live now. I actually wanted to live. I had not had this for any part of my life. And I saw prostitutes, gang members, childhood friends, family members, all come to know the name of Jesus Christ. Because no one could believe that a man so violent, so vile, so wanting of death could be saved. And so I tell you guys right now, if you, where you are questioning Jesus, right now is the time. There is no other time. There is no other time, because you don't know what's going to happen when you leave here. I remember one time I walked out of a library right after I got saved, gave my life to Jesus, and I got hit by a car. Could have died. We don't know. And because of that, the time is now. We have to know that there is something greater than us. And I tell you right now, there is. So if you have any kind of reservations, come see me afterwards. I will gladly talk to you. But do not wait, because you don't know if tomorrow's promised to us. Thank you.
Wow. Just like that, huh?
Appreciate you.
That's so cool. So what we thought would be really cool is that Mike runs a nonprofit here in the city of Reading, so we thought it would be cool if we heard from Mike his testimony and maybe a little bit about living hope Compassion Ministries. And just so you see, my family and I volunteered there for, I don't know, like 6 years or something like that.
Still do.
A long time, yeah. My youngest daughter still cooks breakfast there. So that is some information about Living Hope, but this is Mike Mojarro and his testimony.
Thanks. Morning. I have some nice history with some folks here, even though I don't come here on Sunday mornings. Met with some of these folks in early mornings. Had a men's group at Living Hope, and 6 o'clock came pretty early, but we'd hang out. Carol has probably cooked, I don't know how many thousands of meals for the disenfranchised folks of our community through Living Hope. Anyhow, this is this is a fifth Sunday Testimonies Dream Edition, apparently, because yeah, Dream Edition. Man, if Sean Gates on, Sean goes, you have 15 minutes, but my testimony would probably take about 4 Sundays, so I'm going to kind of break it down into just a little story. I wrote this to myself a few years ago. It was never meant to be shared, but here it is. I've been having random dreams recently about my little brother Brandon that passed away 6 years ago at the age of 25. For some reason, in every recent dream, he was a little boy smiling from ear to ear with his little freckled face. I haven't had a dream about him for a while. However, about a week after he passed, I did have a few dreams that were different from these current ones. In the first dream, Brandon was about the age he was when he passed away. I was running up through some hills that had red dirt and constant switchbacks. As I got close to the top of the hill, near one of the switchbacks, my brother was sitting on a rock next to what I thought was God. Brandon had a somewhat disgusted look on his face. It might not have been a disgust, but it was certainly a look that he gave me when I probably should have known something that I didn't know about. You'd have to know the look. At that point, Brandon peered over at me and said, "If you don't tell them about him," pointing to God, "then I died for nothing." My only conclusion that he was concerned about the family he left behind, their relationship with God, their broken hearts, and their inability to heal fully without God present in their lives. I woke up bawling. I was disgusted with myself. I pastor and mentor strangers in my work. I have introduced God to so many struggling people in our community that were seeking something beyond themselves, something great to bring healing, purpose, and comfort. Yet I had failed at doing so with my family that was so wounded, almost beyond measure. My mother had just lost her son. My sister and brother had lost our Brandon, and my stepfather lost his baby boy. As time went on, I shared that dream with my family and told them how I felt. Because the wounds were fresh, I never really got a response about it. I'm not sure where their faith in God was, or if there was any faith at all. Fast forward a few years later, and tragedy was upon us again. My mother was very ill and on her deathbed. Alcohol and depression had got the best of her. It was several weeks of hell for my family. I'm not exactly sure what it was like for everyone else, but it killed me inside. Did I do enough for her? Could this have been prevented? Why didn't I fix this? I was so upset with myself, with her, and I was upset with God too. The last several days before she went downhill and couldn't communicate very well, we spoke about God, and we spoke about Brandon in my dream. I asked her where she was with God. I asked her if she knew she was going to die. She said, "I do, Michael." I sobbed with my head in her lap. We talked about the dream of Brandon again. I asked her how her relationship with God was and where she stood. She told me that she was scared, but that she was going to be with Brandon. She said that her and God had worked things out. I can't remember exactly what she said, but I remember thinking that she had made her peace. A few days later, she went to be with her Brandon. I recall somebody saying that they weren't sure who needed who more, if Brandon needed his mommy or Debbie needed her boy. Well, later on, I started, back to Fifth Sunday dream testimony. Here it happened again in my dream last night. I remember my dream starting out like a quest. I was traveling in all these places I'd never seen or been to. When I woke and analyzed my dream, I realized that it was weird because usually dreams reflect on something from the day before, like something that influenced the dream. I felt like I was trying to find something, but had no idea what. I was on these random trails, paths I'd never been on. Eventually, I came to some bridge over water. I was underneath a bridge by a pillar and couldn't figure out how to get across. I eventually made it to the top and was able to cross it. Randomly, I was in a room with Brandon and my mom. Brandon was a baby, smiling with a giant grin and all those freckles. My mom said, "Today's his birthday. He's 2." I asked her why he was a baby. She said, "In heaven, you get to be when you're happiest." I remember the last bit of that dream. I walked around for a second down some hall, and then I woke up. I thought about what she said. It really bothered me to think that Brandon might not have been happy growing up, that life was tough for him. That life was tough, that he struggled. Those last few years of his life, he and I were closer than ever. I felt like it was my job to keep him safe. He worked for one of my companies, and he was a major pain in my butt. Fired him like 10 times, at least. We had several disagreements, to say the least. No matter what, though, I always felt like I was responsible for him. I was his big brother. When he passed, I failed. The night he died, I didn't answer his call. I was watching a movie and didn't want to find myself in a bar later with him. I will live with that forever. I woke up my wife to tell her about the dream. It took about 15 minutes for me to get it out. I cried the whole time, covering my face, covering my weakness, ashamed still that I had failed him. On my way to work, I thought about all those things that could have led me to the dream, coincidences, reasons, guilt. What was it? Was this Brandon and my mother telling me that they were good, that they were happy, that they were together again? My 22-minute drive to work was filled with thoughts. I think I was trying to disregard the whole thing. It was just a dream. Must have seen a picture of Brandon or something that led me to have this dream. That's what dreams traditionally work, right? About a mile before I get to work, I hit the tuner on my stereo. On came a song, Brother, by Need to Breathe. The lyrics talk about these two brothers and their weaknesses. One part says, "Brother, let me be your shelter. And when you call and need me near, saying, where'd you go? Brother, I'm right here. And on those days when the sky begins to fall, you're the blood of my blood. We can get through it all." Ha. Being the stubborn mule that I am, I guess that God had to make it loud and clear for me. I got to work, my mind spinning, of course. I looked up the song Brother on YouTube, emailed it to my wife, and said, I guess I can't disregard that. You have always, and she says, wow, that sounds like Brandon is reaching out to you. She's like, you've always played a father-brother role, big brother role in his life. Even in his death, you question what you could have, should have done differently. That is water under the bridge. He has so much of a greater capacity to father-brother you at this point, to be your shelter. I was like, man, that was good. And this is just one of those things to kind of remind folks the nudges. I could tell you guys story after story about God just like, do this, especially like with the nonprofit, with Living Hope. There's been so many things where I'm like, no, we don't want to do this. This is horrible. I don't want to work 80 hours a week. And as God's like, yes, you're going to do this. And it's just these little nudges that constantly happen that you can either ignore or you could follow through with. And this is like the story of my life where God's just constantly like, hey, sent you a friend request like 2 weeks ago. Where you at? But this is just, like I said, one of those reminders for me. It's become part of the thing now where every decision that I try to make for Living Hope, or even any important decision that I make in my life, I'm just constantly, God, what do you want me to do here? I'm going to screw this up if I make my own decision because I am a stubborn mule. And just to constantly focus, like, okay, where do you want me? How do you want me to do this? How should I proceed? So that's Sunday Dream Testimonies.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. That is actually pretty funny. I mean, none of this is scripted. I don't tell them like, hey, dreams. But that is interesting to see, the coincidence.